Tony Restel here from Social Hire, and delighted to be joined today by Ryan O'Donnell. Ryan's going to be helping us think about how small businesses can generate sales and some ideas on things to focus on doing. So Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. Do you want to just start by introducing yourself and your background, your company?
Yeah, Tony, glad to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Glad we could finally connect. So my name is Ryan O'Donnell, co-founder of two SaaS platforms, Replyify.com and Sellhack.com. We've been building this out since 2014. B2B sales automation software meant for automating, typically inefficient sales processes for prospecting and outbound.
Can't wait to get into it. So you obviously see a lot in terms of the sales market and what's going on out there. How have things changed since COVID struck? What have you been seeing?
We've seen it all. I mean, look, if you look back at the 1960s, right, it was phone calls, right, or door to door. Like sales has always involved some semblance of somebody who has a product or service to sell, who needing to get in front of a potential customer, right? And phone hasn't gone away, right? People still make phone calls. What has changed is that people aren't going, up to a location anymore. There aren't boots on the ground, right? Walking in, checking in, knocking on doors. We've also seen the predominance of phone calls dropping off. We actually, once COVID hit, we saw, first couple months we were probably down a bit just because it was kind of shock and awe across the world. Still is. I think the biggest trend that we've seen. What's that?
To put it mildly.
To put it mildly. From our perspective, though, we're seeing businesses completely change their sales process. You have to think about it, take a step back, right? If you historically used the phones as your primary means of outbound sales to get in touch with a prospect, you got two things going on, right? So people are working from home, so they're not at their office, okay? So the argument to that is, well, okay, yeah, but they're going to forward their office phone to their home phone. What folks don't realize, me in particular, I struggle with this on a daily basis. I have three kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. Fortunately, 2 of the 3 are in school right now. But when someone calls me, there is a very high likelihood that I have, kids making tent forts outside my office. You can see there's a glass door right there. Playing music, YouTube, running around the house screaming. I'm not answering the phone, right? And I think a lot of folks are kind of going through the same thing. In organizations that have typically been boots on the ground, knocking on doors, checking in on prospects, on the road, status at car rental places and hotels like that business has changed. And we've seen companies who have kind of embraced the fact that, maybe they were, historically reluctant to use email as a way of getting in front of clients and prospects. But today it's the best method for folks, given where we are in this climate. And, from my perspective, I think it's one of those things that it's not going to change.
Absolutely. So let's imagine you've got a business owner, maybe it's a new business, maybe it's an established business. If they wanted to go down the route of making more use of email, where would they start? What would they do?
Yeah, so we're actually working with and advising a company right now who's going through this, and our perspective is we see this on a daily basis, right? We see companies of all different shapes and forms, kind of using our software to do top of the funnel, and I mean that literally the broad spectrum. I have a professional cuddleist in New Zealand who's using our tech to get in front of people and offer them some sensory, help as a B2B service, right? Going into companies all the way through to, your Fortune 500 companies who are using this. But in particular, this one company that kind of piqued our curiosity, they wanted to launch back in April of 2020. And then the whole world went into a lockdown. Company's called Workforce Perks. So Workforce Perks provides this student loan benefit. So an HR company would provide a series of benefits for their clients. Traditional, kind of investment. You can invest in a 401k. Workforce Perks says, hey, instead of just the 401k, let's give these companies, or let's give the employees a way to divert some of the company match dollars from a 401k to pay back their student loans, right? Get them out of debt faster, get them buying houses, starting families, and moving on with their lives. Focused on debt now, not debt 30 years from now, right? Really interesting proposition, caught our eye. It was a young company, young founding team. They've never done this before. COVID hit, no, benefits are locked down. No one's trying to do anything. So we had a really good opportunity to kind of sit down and help them kind of carve out a process. So one of the first things that we did was, we took them through their first couple customers and we said, look, first thing we're going to do is some very basic research, right? I want you to go through and find, go to LinkedIn and open up an Excel spreadsheet. And I want in that Excel spreadsheet, we have them go in and have columns that were job title, industry, company size, keywords, location, and then, notes. And then we had them go out to LinkedIn and find the profiles of the folks that have already done business with them, or at least expressed a high interest in it. And they built out a persona, right? And they did this for about 10 different people. And what they looked for while building, while going through that 30-minute exercise, which any of us can do, they validated and invalidated some assumptions they had, right? So they thought they were going after, one type of customer in a particular industry or company size. And what the data actually told them was it was completely different. They needed to focus their attention on, companies that were 250 to 500 employees, not 10,000 plus, right? They needed to go after a director level or someone with, talent or benefits in their job title with these keywords. So we helped them apply this kind of data-driven approach using some manual research to validate or invalidate their assumptions. And I would recommend that to anyone as a first start, right? And if you don't have customers yet, go find your competitors' customers, right? Go onto a review site like, G2 Crowd, for example, or go to their website and look at the people that have left them testimonials. You can find a lot of information with a little bit of manual research, right? From there, once you kind of have those patterns established and the data gives you a good idea of who you need to be reaching out to, then it's going back and fishing where the fish are, right? Using something like LinkedIn or whatever other source of data you have. And it's doing a lookalike search, right? It's trying to find people who meet and validate, or who meet your validated personas. And then it's building a list of those folks. And then it's finding their contact information, right? And once you have that, then it's a matter of going back to your sales notes or going back to your internal notes and coming up with an email sequence, right? A way of reaching out to these folks. Okay, so you're going to say, hey Tony, Ryan here from Replyify. Here's why we're cool. Here's why we think you're cool. Here's why we think we should do business together, and make it very, very tailored for them. And then a couple days later, schedule a follow-up email, right? And that follow-up email, very, very important. It can't just say the same thing. It can't regurgitate exactly what was in your first message, right? We're using email here, and I'm sure we've all gotten our fair share of cold emails over the years, and things have been drastically changing just in the last 5 years, where folks are getting a lot more tailored with regards to how they approach outbound prospecting. So it all starts with the data and building the segments, and then finding the lookalike contacts, getting their contact information, and building a very tailored campaign for them, right, where you're actually talking to them. So for me, I sell primarily to like salespeople, right, and recruiters, who are also salespeople, if we're going to, just tell it like it is, right? Some of the best salespeople I know, their job titles don't say sales, right? They're actually recruiters, but they know how to do this. So when you're reaching out to someone, and when I reach out to someone in selling to salespeople, I know that if I'm reaching out to a VP of sales at a 5,000 person company, my message is drastically different than reaching out to a VP of sales at a 5-person company or 50-person company. They care about different things, right? One reports up, right, to the CRO or to the C-suite, who reports up to the CEO, who, may have a publicly traded company and reports to, to Wall Street, for example. They have completely different metrics.